The next cause is public goods. Public goods are the goods that are consumed by a large number of population, and their cost does not increase with the increase in the number of consumers. Public goods are both non-rivalrous as well as non-excludable. The list of public goods varies depending on how specially the term is viewed. However, common examples of public goods would include street lighting. It is generally provided by communities, and consumption or the usage of the lighting does not prevent others from using it as well, and that's why it is a public goods. Second public goods that comes to my mind is emergency services. They are provided to communities and their use benefits are there to strengthen the community. Another good example of public goods could be national defense. Whether paid or voluntarily, the National Defense Services protects country as a whole. Hence, public goods are important because they are designed to be available to the public in general and possesses specific qualities that prevent individuals or group from being unable to access them. They must also be able to withstand use without then becoming unavailable to the future, or you can say of future users. When I use the word non-rivalrous, I am sure you wouldn't be understanding what exactly this particular word means in this context. So, non-rivalrous consumption means that the goods are allocated efficiently to the whole population if provided at zero cost, while non-excludable consumption means that public goods cannot exclude non-payers from its consumption. Non-rival goods may be consumed by one consumer without preventing simultaneous consumption by other. Most examples of non-rival goods are intangible. Broadcast television is an example of non-rival goods. When a consumer turns on a TV set, this does not prevent the TV in another consumer's house from working. Thus, non-rivalrous good refers to the goods that can be consumed by one person without diminishing the consumption possibility of others. The consumption of non-rivalrous products or goods by an individual do not impede or reduce its availability for others. In fact, an additional unit of these goods can prevent benefits to all users. These type of goods are characterized by their compatibility with shared consumption among the people. This type of trait or this trait is particularly evident in public goods, which are goods utilized for the overall benefit of the general public. Public goods often arises as a result of government welfare measures, thus contributing to the welfare and well-being of the society as a whole. These goods are resources consumed by individuals and they do not reduce the amount which are available to the others as well. Let's take an example again. A pen can be considered to be a rival goods. When an individual uses a pen, only that person can use it at that time and another person cannot use the same pen simultaneously. Now this means one person's use or consumption of that goods prevent it from being consumed by others, as opposed to bus or any other public transport where multiple people can use them simultaneously. So in these two examples, if you could have seen, the pen was a product which only one person used and the other person can't use simultaneously. But the other side, as a public goods, I took an example of a bus wherein multiple people can board in simultaneously. Another distinguished aspect of these kind of goods is marginal benefits of providing all consumer with an additional unit of a good. An additional unit of non-rival goods will invariably be distributed among all the consumers. On the other hand, with a rival good such as an apple, if additional units are bought, it is beneficial for the individual who buys it. Unlike a street light, a non-rival goods becomes, or where the additional light could help the light up the community a little brighter. This means that when an individual need more rival goods, the goods must be increasingly produced. It could also be increased by reducing the quantity available for someone else, provided they are a real opportunity cost to giving more of those goods to others. Public goods basically creates a market failure if a section of population that consumes the goods fail to pay but continues using goods as actual payers. For example, another example here could be, let's say, police service is a public goods that every citizen entitled to enjoy regardless of whether or not they pay taxes to the government. Another good example could be a public beaches. So beaches are a great example of public goods. In many areas of the world, they are open to everyone and no one can be excluded from using them. Additionally, one person's use of the beach doesn't stop others from being able to enjoy it. In some countries such as Australia, beaches are protected lands. Nobody are allowed to own them privately. But in some European resort cities, beaches can be owned by private resort companies and you have to pay to sit in the area of that beach. In these cases, the beach loses its status as a public goods. It is public goods when anyone can enjoy it without paying or unpaid voluntarily. The next one is a clean air. Clean air is again one of the example indirectly that we can cite here in public goods. Once it's polluted, everyone suffers the consequences regardless of whether they contribute to the pollution or not. And no one can be excluded from breathing air, making it non-excludable. This is one of the reasons why environmental activists wants government to prevent big industry from polluting. Their pollution of the air harms everyone and often goes unpunished. They are damaging a public goods at large. Let's take an example of cycleways. Cycleways provides a non-polluting healthy form of transport that can be used by everyone. They are generally free to use and public spaces set up by local government. They don't produce any carbon emission and therefore these are the goods for the environment. And because they are non-rivalrous, one person's use of the cycleway doesn't stop others from being able to use it. In many cities, cycleways are being created to encourage people to cycle more. They are often segregated from cars to make them safer for the cyclist. Another example could be flood control. Floods don't discriminate. They will wash through the entire city. To address this, communities have developed dams that prevents flood from between surging in the rivers. So for these activities, the dams are made in order to prevent the flood entering the city or during the rainy season when it is overdone. Flood control services are non-rivalrous because they protect everyone without making any discrimination. They are also non-exclusive because they protect everyone equally. To use national defense as an illustration, whether or not citizens pay for it, the national armed forces will provide a defense for them. Foreign invasion are denied providing a benefit to each individual here in this case. But because the individual benefits regardless of whether they pay, few are likely to pay if they have a choice. If defense were a good in the market, it would earn no revenue because no one would have to pay to enjoy it. But providing defense is costly, so no producer would undertake the task because they could not make money doing so. The market would then fail. There would be no national defense even though such defense is arguably socially optimal because it deters armed invasion. The next causes would be asymmetry information that causes a market failure. Market failure may also result from lack of appropriate information among the buyers or sellers. This means that the price of the demand or supply does not reflect all the benefit, opportunity, cost of a good. The lack of information on the buyer side may mean that buyer may be willing to pay a higher or lower level for the product because they don't know its actual benefits. On the other hand, inadequate information on the seller side may mean that they may be willing to accept a higher or lower price for the product than the actual opportunity cost of producing it. Asymmetry information is a term used when one party is more informed about a product or service than another. For instance, when one is bargaining a product, he or she does not know how low the seller is willing to go. Similarly, the seller do not know how much a buyer is willing to spend. The lack of balance in the information between the seller and the buyer in this particular case can result in a market failure. Asymmetric information can lead to market failure because it can result in an inconsistent or inefficient allocation of resources towards the manufacture or consumption of given goods or service. For example, if a company provides false information about its product so that it seems a better than of its rivals which are there in the market, there will be higher demand for the goods resulting in an increase in the price which would not be in the case if there was transparency. Hence, asymmetric information is a dysfunctional in the core operating premise of a free market. It violates the pre-assumptions that all factors in a market economy are making well-informed, best available option decisions about buying and selling of goods and service, which can lead to several different kinds of market failures. Consider the financial crisis of 2008, in which a limited number of people with information about the impending housing market crash were able to short market stocks. This was a success for individuals who predicted the crash. But since many more people lagged or did not use the information about the housing bubble, the overall market failed and caused the widespread of financial loss. In economics, class terms the specific market failures that information asymmetry can lead to moral hazards. Now, what is moral hazards? When a buyer or the seller has some incentive to be misleading about the risk of a transaction, like in 2008 crash when some mortgage lender got bonuses for initiating a mortgage that were more risky than the buyer thought so. The second could be adverse selection. What is adverse selection? When a buyer or the seller has information that another party is in the transaction lacks insights trading is a classic example of it. That is insiders trading. We'll be talking about this in the coming slides. Thank you.